Noeline, just, I guess, explain feelings and I imagine disappointment, especially given the big lead at half time.
Yeah, definitely. We coughed up 14 points there. Look, it just shows these areas that we need to work on and the gaps in regards to what we need to do when we're starting to capitulate or we're starting to pull ourselves apart. Also, I think giving credit to the Roses, I thought the changes were great. They made an impact. We became reactive. And I think also we became quite stagnant as well. So a lot of learnings. I know that word gets bandied around, but we've still got some work to do.
I guess, now being able to look back at those 3 games in the lead up to
Yeah.
it, I mean, just talk us through that, and I mean it's probably compounded by those injuries, which I imagine had something to do with the build-up as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think the positive, if there is a positive, is that not long-term injury. So I was a wee bit worried there yesterday with Sulu in particular, but that's only going to be a couple of weeks and getting her ready. So really happy if that's a positive out of that. But I think as well. With that, it means that we don't have maybe the same firepower in regards to experience. Not making excuses because, hey, we were up by 10. So we just didn't do the job or didn't finish it off and probably didn't react or be proactive in the way that we should have. A lot of learnings, a lot of things that we can really reflect on as we build. But I think from my perspective, it's a starting point where I know where players are at. And unfortunately, you only get that through international experience. So you've got to bring it on the day, but it shows probably the gaps or the areas you need to work on.
What happens between now and next month in those 3 games against the men's team?
Yeah, so they'll go back into, I think it's only about 9 days, if I'm going to be honest. So they'll start probably recovery today and tomorrow, and then get back in. I reckon there's been a lot of learnings. Like, we haven't been in camp. We've been going double time in real time, and it'd be quite good for us to pull off, see what we can do in regards to our strategy, really identify the areas that we need to pinpoint and work on, and see what we can do to improve when we hit the men's team. So I'm really happy, to some respect, that we've got another games, very close, and we've got to improve.
I guess as well, over the last week you've been able to really cycle through that new wave of talent. Generally, how do you find they went at this international level?
I think, it just depends on the individual. I think Tiana played really well in both games, so she really stood up, and just a pity probably that she did get injured, so it would have been quite nice to see what else she can do. It's and probably under fatigue and see the smarts. So I thought she did really well. We got others out there on court, and once again it's a starting point for them and probably shows once again the gap, but also what we need to do in regards to the program. And the people like Sammy and Claire and Shannon, our stalwart players, really once again got down to business, and it's quite good that they can consolidate themselves and do what they need to do.
Does it give you confidence that players like you, Sam, can just step into these roles when needed at last minute, like we've seen today?
Yeah, Sammy's our 3rd captain out of the series, so the work that we've been doing in the ANZ program for the captains is starting to come to fruition. And Sam led out there, and it's such an honour. So it's we've got quite a few in there. We just got to, once again, we've got to be able to do it out on court. So I think there's some positives, but, we've got to lick the wounds and get ourselves ready for the next one.
We've talked a lot this week, obviously, about the build-up to the Commonwealth Games and how important this series was. Despite the loss, how great, I guess, you talked about being able to, test all these combinations and have a good hit out. How important were these 3 games? Because we don't know when the next one will come. Yeah,
they're really important because, as you say, we don't know when we could possibly get international netball, and the only way that you can learn or know, from my perspective, is getting them out there. It's always a fine line because you don't want to muck around too much, but got to keep that balance. But also, when they do it in training environment, then they've got to be given the opportunity. So That's a tick. I think that's a positive thing because I know, as I say, where they're at and what areas they need to work on, and then looking forward in 6-7 months, are they going to be a possibility? So those things you learn as you go.
It's obviously a really complicated scenario with COVID at the moment, but after this we'll be pushing to get these international fixtures because they are going to be important.
Yeah, a lot of people are really pushing behind the scenes to get teams out there and as well as meet the government regulations. So we got, hopefully, we've got the men coming up very soon, so hopefully that can work or get underway, and then hopefully depending where Constellation Cup is in November, December. But we're sort of waiting and seeing where the fixtures are going to be for the next couple of years.
What's the plan with your Auckland-based players? You talk about the possibility of a Constellation Cup. I mean, are you looking at options if Auckland remains at level 3 of them locating elsewhere so they can train?
Yeah, we're working through that at the moment. Alongside the criteria of exemptions, there goes, I can't get into it because I don't know it too much, but there is a criteria. So at the moment we're applying that they can extend the contract. So waiting to see if that happens. So we've got sort of 2 plans on the way, one that they'll stay out and then one obviously that they will go home. So just waiting to hear which one will be approved.
She had another really awesome series backing up the Constellation Cup, kind of nailing that week position for you.
Yeah, very much so. Definitely owning that position and quite reliable, I think, not only defensive but also her ability to take the ball from one end of the court down to the other. And we rely on her hugely to be able to do that. So she worked really hard, and that's the same way. So it's pretty cool that she's able to do that again.
Has this series been a good reminder of how good England are, and it's not just Australia you have to worry about? I mean, Fisher was amazing too. You tie her up in the first quarter, and they bring Cardwell on, and she's amazing as well.
Yeah, look, they got Helen as well in the over in SSN and Joe Harton, so it's going to be some quality players that are going to miss out, and as you say, all 4 of those players are at the world class. So I mean, it reminds, I think they were like 250 more caps than us. They showed the Commonwealth gold medalist, and they were able to, when the chips were down, start to rise. So that's the area that we aspire to be like, and it's not over until it's over. So bit of work to do in regards to us, but best team won on the day, and that's how it is.
Sam, can you just talk to us about what that game was like, particularly towards the end? I mean, I don't know what it was like on court, but up where we were, all we could hear was the England bench. They were making a lot of noise.
Yeah, they're, as we know, a very high energy team, and I think they definitely drew on that at various points in the game. And like Noel said, credit to them because they actually brought it out in that second half and changed their play a little bit, got on top of us defensively, and we struggled to get the ball that we did in the first half. So, yeah, they're definitely vocal, and we know that when they're up, and we saw that happen out there. So, yeah, like we need to take responsibility for that role that went against us because, yeah, when you're up by 10, it's almost unacceptable in some ways, I think, to have lost it by that much.
Do you think it made a difference, like given how much noise they were able to make? I mean, were you saying to some of you girls on the bench, like, hey, come on?
No, I can definitely hear our bench. I guess because they're quite, I don't know if it's their voices or whatever, but you can definitely hear them. But no, I can definitely hear our bench, and our comms are really tight on court as well. We tune into each other's voices quite a bit. So yeah, they're loud, but we don't tune into what they're saying. We're pretty tight in that respect.
Well, and we sort of see things defensively. Obviously, the last few series you've only been able to name 3 defenders with injuries and issues and all this sort of stuff. I mean, it's a bit of concern. I mean, I know you've got Watson and Bora and these sort of players to hopefully come back in the mix, but there's a bit of work needs to be done there. Yeah,
definitely. To have numbers is always a good start. So whether through we're not having enough numbers because of physically not capable or injury or pregnancy has been the area. So it's not anything new. If I'm going to be honest, I've known this for like the last 2 or 3 years, not only in the defence end, it was also in our shooting end. So our book ends have always been limited in numbers. So we've got one end going, we've got to get more work on the other. So still a bit of work, and our ability, because we are limited in numbers, to change up and get ball. So I think defensively, that's what we've always been renowned for, is to turn over ball, and we didn't do enough in that second half, or reactive. We became reactive.
And just a word on Georgia Tom. She must have been a little bit shocked.
You're her buddy.
Oh yeah, it's an honour when you wear the black dress, and I know she feels that. She's taken a different route to get to where she is now. She's not your standard come through the age groups and progress out of high school into a franchise team. She turns 27 this year. But yeah, she's a tick the box kind of girl, and she does the work behind the scenes. So just very proud of her, because it's testament to the fact that she works bloomin' hard. And yeah, it was very cool to see her get a run out there tonight.
Noel, this is the first game that we've had in the series where you just kept the same shooting combination throughout. What did you make of Maya and Tapaya today?
Yeah, actually really good. I was just looking at their stats. Actually, they were high 80s, 90s, and they were wearing some big bodies, tough bodies, not only on the receipt or the catch of the ball, but also the ability to move the circle. I thought they handled themselves really well, and if anything, especially Tapaya, she hasn't really had a lot of game time for a long time. So if we look at their roles and responsibilities, they tick their box, so they'll be happy about that in one way.
And also Kelly Jury going back to goalkeeper for that first part of the game, she seemed like she was really getting into the heads of the English girls.
Yeah, once again, she's probably a good story as well. She provides us with obviously the height, and she turned over a lot of ball, but what I'm seeing is her work rate has definitely gone up another notch, and her attitude and no die sort of attitude, and the ability to move her to goal defence as well is definitely a bonus, depending, as we head towards Commonwealth Games. So her height is a point of difference, and not only that, now with her engine, she's starting to become a menace, a good menace.
And just lastly for me, how you mentioned before, obviously England have a few players out like Joe Hart and etc. So do you guys, and I mean you've had to test.
Oh, you've been nice.
Yes.
Yes.
No, but you've got Jane Watson still, who was out today. There is a core group of players that were missing from this series.
Yes.
Does that also give you a bit more confidence to take this one on the chin and move forward?
Yeah, it's a sort of a double-edged sword, so to speak, because there are some, we know we've got firepower in the back as well, that as they are going to make a difference when they do take the court, not only in their maturity, but also that big game presence. So that is an upside, but in saying that, I thought we had enough within our current squad, and as Sammy said, we're up by 10, so it is unacceptable in our eyes, because you can't rely on the same people to be able to do it all the time. So, but you're right. There are people coming in.
Just to clarify, that extension for the Auckland players, does that carry through to the men's games next month, or does it have to be?
You have to reapply. So
you have to reapply for those?
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Yep.